Good morning, Carlene.
Good morning. It's exciting to be here. Thanks for having me.
How are you? No problem. Good to have you with us. And we'll get into it very shortly. But just to set a little bit of context, it saves me doing the full introduction. Carlene, if you just give a very whistle-stop tour, very much a whistle-stop tour through your journey to where you are now, how you got into tech, and how you started Cloud9 Insight.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, in the beginning of my career, I actually wanted to work in air traffic control. In fact, I've got an assistant air traffic control qualification, but I'm actually dyslexic, married to a pilot. So you can imagine if you're telling an aircraft to turn left or right, you've got to get that right, or it could be life and death. So I did actually apply to the Civil Aviation Authority, and I passed everything except this last test they had for telling your left from your right, and I failed it. They said, "Don't worry, come back next year." And I thought about it. I thought, you know what, that is definitely a falling down trait of being dyslexic, telling your left from your right, if you've ever sat next to someone in the car trying to direct them. So I was actually in tech at the time, so I sort of fell into it. But I absolutely love working in tech, and I've started out at IBM, where I was very lucky that they're a fantastic investor in people. And so I got the opportunity to have a lot of training in sales and in consulting, and I fell into the CRM space. So it's great for me because even though you're in tech, actually you're talking a lot to business people about how they sort of grow their business through sales and marketing. And then sort of over the years, I then fell into sort of Sage, where I was a general manager there at their CRM division. And I had all my employees telling me, "Hey, have you seen this cloud thing that everyone's doing? And look at Microsoft, they're about to launch their cloud platform." So I jumped ship, you could say, and I set up my business Cloud9 Insight to support. For me at the time, actually, I'd spent all my life working in corporations and with corporations. So I decided that, it would be great to work with SMEs, which I've never looked back on. Microsoft keep asking me, "Hey, do you want to work with enterprises?" I'm like, no, I absolutely love working in the SME space, working with entrepreneurs and people who have a real passion for what they do. And for me, the Microsoft technology has allowed me to sort of, you could say, level the playing field. It's exactly the same tech that, say, Metro Bank use as a small one-man startup. So I just love to help them with that and their vision. And I've also spent a lot of my life working in VC companies, venture capital funded companies. And what's really struck me is that compared to, say, IBM, is they really sort of lock down on investment in people. And that's, I guess, sort of really stayed with me, the impact that IBM had in accelerating my career versus the other places where I felt that unless I left the business, I didn't have the opportunity to develop significant new skills. I was sort of kept in a box, you could say. And so I sort of carried that thought with me. And then at the beginning of founding sort of Cloud9, one thing that I did was actually invest in apprentices. On the one hand, it's actually a great way of having more people on the ground to do the things that will free up time sort of for your leaders in the business to work on the future of your business, do more to help clients, to make sort of clients' success better. Sort of some of the smaller things often count. But I've been able to invest in that talent and had fantastic results from them starting on, it could be sort of £8,000 or £12,000 as an apprentice. And within 1.5 to 3 years, being able to be paid between 40 and 45,000 is quite a lot of examples in my business where people have done that. And that's only through the investment of giving them opportunity, helping them shadow amazing people in the business to learn more, and investing in their training and development and guiding and coaching them along that journey. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we'll get into some of those tips and how you did that. And it's interesting to see how you've come from a corporate background in some big names like the IBMs and the Sage of the world into sort of an SME space. And do you think a lot of principles that are applied at that level can be applied at SMEs within SMEs?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I think it is. Yeah, absolutely. I think that organizations, whether you're a corporate or a small one, I think you should be investing in leadership skills in people to sort of also a number of years ago, actually supported a local school in Brighton with their entrepreneurship program. Is an amazing speaker, and he stood up and he said, hey, for all of you in this sixth form, you think that entrepreneurship is about starting your own business. And what he said was, actually, do you know what? Entrepreneurship is applicable whether you work in a corporate or a small business or you're starting your own business, because it's all about finding opportunity and sort of realizing that. And so I look to try and do that with my team, to make them mini entrepreneurs within the business, so that my colleagues are not always having to feed them the ideas of what to do, but making them a part of the growth of the business.
Yeah, and we'll go into the culture firstly. And a lot of people may think that it's a buzzword. Creating company culture is a tick box exercise for some leaders and business owners. But if there's companies within today's event that have teams of 5, 20, 50, when it comes to creating a company culture or assessing your company culture, where do you start?
Well, I would say that probably the most important place to start is actually your values, sort of being aware of those, work with your team, look at some of your best people in the team that you feel, why is it that they just feel so right for the business? Why do our clients love them and what they do? And try and distill the values that you find in those people into sort of probably no more than 5, but it could be less as well. One of the key growth values in our business is growth mindset, for example, which I feel in the tech sector is really important, because if you snooze, then the technology moves on very quickly. You need people who are really ambitious to learn and keep learning and don't rest on sort of what they knew yesterday. So that's really important for our business. And values is really important because you should use that in your job adverts to make sure you're attracting the right people to your business. And when you're assessing people's performance in the business, it's constantly assessed against this. Sort of, how aligned are they with the company values? Which are our most important values that people critically have to meet, and which are the ones that are sort of desirable and potentially they'll get there. But it's when you have recruited people and you're measuring people against your values, then you'll have an amazing team, assuming they have the skills to do the job. But the other aspect I think that's really important as company culture is actually your company purpose. So company purpose is really the sort of the reason why people come to work for you. It's the reason why customers come to work with you. It's what really unites a team of people together as a collective to achieve a common purpose. And if you look out there in the marketplace at really successful companies, then it's their strong culture that sort of unites them together. Because I think the problem for a lot of companies is if you're entirely focused on commercially driving up sort of revenue, and you think about a lot of the companies that are in the stock market, it's all about driving shareholder value and return on investment. They sort of ignore the employees as part of that whole piece of the puzzle. And I think that actually, for me, I would turn it around and say, if you as a business focus on culture and your employees, you can actually create significant more equitable value of your business.
And that's a great lead into sort of the next point and it'll be interesting to hear from attendees about some good examples within their business and the direct results. And in your business, Carlene, what have been the significant results that you've seen, directly in the business financially, from results in winning clients and awards? What's been the tangible results from it? Because, there may be some people that think, investing in company culture is a cost, but playing the long game with it, there will be results. So what have you seen at Cloud9?
Yeah, I guess you could measure it in 3 ways, maybe. One might be, I think in my business I have this image in my head of a sort of like a seesaw in a children's playground, where I look at the value that somebody's adding to the business as a V on one side, and on the other side of the seesaw is sort of a pound sign and an R for risk. It's sort of an equation I've come up with, and it's how I think of everyone in the business. And often when they come in, there's a sort of risk they create because they don't know how to do the job right, or it's a sort of, they haven't proven themselves yet, but there's also a cost of their salary. And then on the other side is the value. It's their contribution to not just the day-to-day success in their role, but the strategic contribution to our success as a business. So the efforts of what we do is to try and increase everybody's value to the business. And if that seesaw doesn't come up, so the value is higher, then I look to try and, frankly, have to exit them from the business if there's no way of in doing that. And some of the value might be in them enabling other people to do their job more effectively. So I just always have this sort of mindset. So for me, when I look at the fact that I can bring people into the business and they might be on a sort of low living wage salary, say that's the salary that they've asked for when they join, and I can double or treble their salary in the short time working with me, that's one value. And clearly I wouldn't increase their salary, or they wouldn't get a market offer if they left the business if they hadn't increased their value. But otherwise, even in the last 12 months up until end of June, our growth as a business by turnover was at nearly 70%, and year on year we keep growing quite significantly, and our profits are even greater at 200%. So there must be quite a bit that myself and the team are doing well, I guess, to achieve that. And recently in the last year, some of the awards that we've been given in recognition of this, we won the Gatwick Diamond Investing in People for Business Success. We were voted in the top SME leaders for culture and Business Week and Breathe HR. About Time nominated me in their top 10 female entrepreneurs to watch. Just very recently, the IOD had me as a finalist for Director of the Year and Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year. And I've also been a finalist this last year for FSB Wellbeing Awards. So I guess there are some points of recognition for things that I would attribute a lot of that to the work that we do around investing in people and the importance that we place on culture in our business.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting analogy you use about with the seesaw and the value and the cost. And when you're looking to increase that value within an employee, and how you engage them, how do you develop them? What methods do you use? What have you seen work well within your business and in your time?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things. One is that I would say if you're engaging, well, first of all, don't leave it till you're a bigger organization to invest in HR. And I was very fortunate to work with Hannah Smith, who now we're actually with Futurely, who was on a sort of retainer basis working with me in HR. And she really massively opened my eyes to the value of getting the right HR people in, because in my experience of what I've seen in my past is that you typically most HR people focus on discipline, administration and compliance. Whereas for me, actually, I think that's all wrong. I think HR people should be about caring and investment in your people. And if you can get somebody to help you with your line managers and making sure the line managers are also aligned with that and have a coaching style that can really help, because there's nothing worse than having a line manager that is, you could say, micromanaging your team. You really sort of stunt their growth. And one of the best investments in training I've ever spent was on coaching. So having that, so it's thinking about one of the other issues that a lot of businesses face is presenteeism. It's a growing concern. I'm sure, especially during lockdown, people aren't going to phone in with their sick days. And there could be a lot of that might be down to personal issues that people face. So loss in income in their household that you're not even aware of, maybe mental health sort of stresses about their anxiety around COVID, or maybe they're caring for elderly or other people or new kids or whatever. There's invisible stresses, you could say, on your employees. And so one of the things that we put in place a few years ago was an employee assistance program, which is an insurance, and it's very low cost, that allows us to encourage the team, instead of bringing their issues into the workplace and talking to their colleagues and maybe crying and distracting them, and everyone's performance sort of dies, is encouraging them to have access to counselling or help in whatever way is relevant for that person. And so that's been a fantastic investment. We ourselves actually use Peninsula Group, and they also give us a lot of advice around HR and things like that. So that's been great for our business.
And you've kindly shared a document that we'll be sharing with attendees afterwards with real sort of documents within that. It's an Excel sheet, and you've got one that's called a 10-year CV. And that's something that you speak to your employees from the outset to ask, right, I want you to fill out a CV for 10 years ahead. As well as that, we've got the KPI house, skills matrix, and a competency framework. just give us an idea of how you utilize them. And we will share these templates that Carlene's kindly shared with us afterwards. But how do you use them within the business? The 10-year CV one particularly intrigues me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually subscribe to Harvard Business Review, and I saw an article in there a few years ago which said, if you're looking to develop your own career, why not start with a future 10-year CV? And I thought, that's what a great idea. So I now actually actively encourage even the senior people in my business to create a future 10-year CV. And if I encourage them to start in the future at 10 years, because you could be more creative, it seems so far away. In fact, one of our apprentices wrote head of IT at Google, such as there's no ceiling, is there? So, which is really exciting. But for me, the benefits are that I get to see what is their ambition, what's the pace of their ambition, what's their salary expectations, what are the skills that they want to do. So if I had somebody who said, I want to run my own business one day, or I want to be the MD one day, which is actually the case, I know that I can push them more and create more opportunities, because my philosophy is you can't motivate people, that it has to be within them. But if I can align the opportunities I create for them to add value to the business aligned with what they want to do, then it's great for me. And I also know what their salary expectations are, so I don't lose somebody. If I feel I can give them the opportunity to learn skills that will increase their value to that, whatever their expectations are, then my retention of people will be higher as well. So, and it's really interesting to see. You can't assume anything about where people are going. It's a difficult conversation to have with people, to say, because they always give you the answer that they feel you want to hear. Whereas in a 10-year CV, it's unrealistic that anyone would assume that they're going to be in your business. But at least you have a sense of, well, how long have I got this employee for, and what can we do to maximize their value to the business? Yeah. That's been great for us.
Yeah, I guess if you know that they've got ambitions to be elsewhere in 5 years, you go, great. If we can get the most out of them during that period, then that's going to benefit the business. So yeah, it's a really interesting document. And as I say, we'll share the template that Carlene's shared with us. And where do you get your ideas and inspiration from, Carlene? Because I'm the same. I'm always thinking about how to engage my team, and I'm sure there's other leaders out there going, what can I do? There's little tips and tricks, but where do you get your ideas? Where do you get your inspiration from?
Yeah, I definitely get a lot of inspiration, actually, even from my team. One thing that we did during lockdown, it was sort of driven partially by my to try and build different team building whilst remote. So we set up a competition, for example, on what innovation should the business be doing into the future, and we put people in teams of 3, and they came up with their own ideas, which had to have a return on investment. So they sort of inspire me, but also with their passion and energy. I hire a lot of young people into the business. We have a lot of experienced people, but the younger generation have a lot of energy and a lot of passion, and it's highly motivating. But I do find that if you can surround yourself as well with other peers through networking. Personally, I actually belong to a sort of IT leaders group, and I also belong to Vistage, which is a CEO group. And I get a lot of inspiration from hearing about what other people are doing, and it makes you realize, you know what, you might beat yourself up, but you're doing okay, and you might have similar challenges or different challenges, and you might be able to support each other. So that helps a lot. I mentioned Harvard Business Review. I love Harvard Business Review. If you like marketing and HR, it's a great read as well. And I think I'd also draw back a lot from my IBM days. They're so generous in their investment in people. I think one of probably the best skills they actually taught me was the legal advice. They put you on a lot of legal training if you're in sales in IBM, because they're probably easy to sue. So, but you can never have enough legal background running a business, probably.
Yeah. And last one from me, and I've got a couple of questions to pick out from the Q&A. It's very relevant at the moment. You mentioned about the apprentices that you've employed in the past, and with the government looking to encourage businesses to take on more apprentices at the moment. From your experience, if anyone's considering doing that, and again, if anyone within the event has experience doing it, please feel free to share. But Carlene, in your experience, what would be the best way as a business owner to approach that? Both from how do you get those people to buy in, the apprentices to buy in, and how do you nurture them along the way? What have you seen that's worked in your experience?
Yeah, I would definitely go for it. If you feel, even if you don't feel you need apprentices, if you feel you've got capacity, there are so many benefits for having it, including it gives leadership training, effectively experience to people that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So if you've got some people who you could have mentor them, so mentoring experience, their energy and enthusiasm and ambition to learn, their self-learning skills are, in most cases, are amazing. So sometimes you don't always have the things the time to do the things that you want to do. But I would often, if you can hire 2 at a time, that's often a good thing, because it can be very intimidating for an apprentice coming in for the first time and they think everybody else knows everything. So if they've got somebody else who's on the same level of them as them, that can help. Make sure you pick a great provider, because you want to make sure that the course is actually teaching them skills relevant to do the role. That's required anyway. And in my business, what I did is, it's going to be sent out by Bradley, but I've built a competency framework. So think about the careers that are possible within your business and what is the steps to achieve that career. So in my business, it might be a consultant is the highest part of the ladder, but they could start in support. And so just think about all of the skills, not just the technical skills, but other softer skills, and make it really clear to the apprentice, where is what is that path? What are the skills that they need to attain, and help them work towards achieving that. But also, I think that the skills that you learn as an apprentice is only a small part of that is actually attending training. The majority of actually the learning opportunities from shadowing. So in our case, for example, if we had a client project, we might look to get that apprentice shadowing, going along to that, sitting silently. We'd give them some tasks to do some research in advance. So they're sitting there informed about the client industry and the client business, etc., so they can get more out of it. But there are probably so many amazing opportunities, whether it's in marketing, sales, or whatever your business does, for a new person coming in. And it's a wonderful gift. As a parent myself, I just really feel for the younger generation who have been particularly catastrophically affected by COVID and job opportunities. So, and I know there are generous sort of funding opportunities as well to support people hiring young people at this time. So yeah, it's a great thing to do.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And to finish off, we've got a couple of questions. First one from Simon Gregg at XTech. It's back to the company culture, I think. Within the values of the business, do you think that a big part is everyone understanding the overall purpose of why you do what you do as a business? 100%,
absolutely. But I would say that your purpose might change as a business too. And what I've heard is that some organizations, they make, I think one thing that's really important is a book that some of you, there's probably quite a few entrepreneurs on this session, but a book that I've often been recommended, which is called From Good to Great by Jim Collins. And in there, he talks about the hedgehog effect. And with that, it's really important that you follow your passion. And I think everybody needs to really believe and be passionate about the purpose of your company. And the chances are, if they don't, they won't stay, or they're not performing at their highest levels. And it might be an interesting check to say, well, first of all, do I have a company purpose? Is it still valid? Because it's quite okay to change it. And how aligned are people to that? Do they understand and believe in it?
Yeah, there's a lot of perhaps a time right now where purpose, company, not values as such, but purpose is potentially changing. We've got an addition to that question actually from Gavin. He said, to add to Simon's question, any tips on best ways to embed your company values into a team?
Good question. Well, firstly, I would, in my interview process, we actually share the company values, and in the first chat, we actually don't draw attention to it. We call it a cultural sort of meeting. So we have a screen share, even pre-COVID, with our a video call with our candidates, and it's a
don't know if hopefully we haven't lost Carlene. Oh no. So yeah, you're back. Sorry, I don't know if it was just on my screen or not, but you're back. You're back.
So I would say that we, off the cuff, we basically asked them which of our company values do you most resonate with you. What we're checking for is, did they actually look at our website? Does that meet? Does the values are they important to them? And if they don't have a good answer, they won't pass the cultural test. And then when they actually come in for interview, we actually ask them again to sort of identify which of the values are most important to them and how do they resonate with them. So we're checking again and probably reinforcing it. And in our leadership meetings, we look at people and identify where there might be people in the company who aren't sort of as aligned as they ought to be. We expect them to be. So there's a risk there with the business. So we need to address that, but also celebrating and giving kudos to people aligned with the company values as well, and really promoting them. And I think it is good. We do have them. We've put them up into beautiful, colorful sort of pictures in our kitchen. So they're nice to look at, but I do think you have to live them more than just putting them up on the wall, of course.
Yeah, fantastic. And lastly, Carlene, from Roger, he's asked, the IT industry is under a lot of pressure at the moment. How are Cloud9 dealing with staff wellbeing?
Yes, good question. I think we've been very flexible about how we've now opened our offices, but being very flexible about how we've returned to the office. I'm very significantly investing in training at the moment. So we've got quite a lot of training coming up for everyone in the business, including training on coaching training. We've got training on NLP, if any of you know that. I'm also investing in a program to create people's personal brands. And when you do that, you really think about what you want to be known for. How do you come across? So you might have some people who are finding this time a really anxious time, but just really focusing on investing in them. So our investment in personal brand is about how they use social media, how they sort of define and create their brand, and that's for the long term for them as well. And I've seen a sort of an effect already with that in the business to sort of make people feel more included in who the company is, but also thinking about how they take their own personal values and bring those to work as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Well, been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Carlene. Thank you very much for joining us.